All right, I mentioned 10-pound trouts. Now, this isn't against any rural area. Let me say that first off. I grew up in McDowell County, loved to death. A lot of these rural communities have rivers nearby, and the way we used to do things is we run a pipe from the house into the river. And this is an important issue to talk about. Not a lot of people like to talk about it, but there's still some rivers, not mentioning no names, in the state that have straight pipes running to the river. Welcome to Creepalachia. It is time to battle down. It is the Super Toilet Bowl, and we have the studio jam-packed today with three amazing individuals that are highly professional, unlike me. And I'm going to go through, we're going to kind of introduce each one of you and do some backstory. So let's just go. I'm looking at the screen here. Let's go top down around and count or clockwise. Brandon Conley, thank you for joining us, sir. So give me a background about your job currently.
Well, I'm a project manager for a civil engineering firm, specialized in water and wastewater. So we work all over. Actually, I work in 3 states doing water and wastewater. So I think it gives a good background on the design standpoint for this conversation.
Perfect. Excellent. Professional response. Let's go. Veronica. Veronica Crosier is here. Tell me about yourself.
Hey, yeah, I'm Veronica Crosier. I grew up in southern West Virginia. My parents run a small operation that handles septic, grease, and portable sanitation waste. And after growing up in that industry, I've now found myself as the executive director of the Portable Sanitation Association International. So I get to oversee bringing that community together to set standards, spread education, and basically elevate the portable sanitation industry.
Heck yeah. Professionalism. Look at y'all. Rose to the top of the ranks for a reason. And Veronica, known for a while, super amazing person. So glad to have you here. When I thought porta potties, I said, I know exactly who I got to get. So thank you. We got Luke Stevens, who has arrived from the Beckley Sanitary Board. So tell me about yourself, sir.
Yeah, I'm Luke. I grew up in Southern West Virginia. Have been in Beckley for the last 7 years, and working at the Beckley Sanitary Board. We're the sewer collection and treatment provider for about half of about 10,000 customers in Beckley, and I serve as the operations manager there, and we do a lot of local projects. We're always investigating our infrastructure and then trying to improve what we've been given.
Love it, and I've been there. I've taken some photos there, and all I know is you got these 5 big pools, or 6, or I don't know how many, but they spin around. They're not swimming pools. Right. If you jump in it, you may get some form of dysentery. Or, I don't know, but I'm looking forward to talking about this. Yeah. So I want to start this off and there is a stigma with poop. Let's just say it together. Poop. There we go. All right. We're going to talk poop today. And I wanted each of us to give a poop appreciation statement. First thing, I didn't put this on the questions, so we're just going to see what you come up with. But I'll go first. So my poop appreciation statement is, I'm so glad that I can poop. And the reason is, if you couldn't, you would die, like John Wayne. So it's good, and I appreciate when my system's functioning and that it goes out. And, I think it gets a bad rap because it stinks. No one likes smelling it. I get so mad because every time there's a dog pile around, I step on it. It's just is what it is. So that's mine. What about you, Brandon? Let's go.
I think it's a good industry, actually. It keeps things moving, the environment and economics in the industry and the economy around the state.
Beautiful. E.L. Robinson, give him a raise. My man's doing great. Veronica, what about you?
Oh, man, poop is awesome. Like you said, if we're pooping, that means we're working the way we're supposed to. Hopefully we're all having good, healthy poops out there. And coming from the portable sanitation industry, it is an honor and a privilege to be able to provide clean, accessible, safe places for people to take a good poo.
Yes. And if it didn't happen, imagine what the world would be if we didn't figure out like early on, okay, I got to do this thing. What are we going to call it? I know what I'm going to call it. That's poop. Okay. What do we do with poop? Used to, they just, go out, poop in the yard, walk around. And just eventually they started figuring out like Sally Mae got real sick. What's going on? Well, it's probably the poop. So then they said, well, we're going to reroute this poop. Okay, let's dig a hole. We'll poop in the hole. We'll cover it up. And then we'll come back to camp. Well, that started not working eventually because there's so many poops going on. So you see where we're going to go with this super toilet bowl. We're going to walk through all these things to where we are now and figure out why poop still flows in some of the rivers. And, that doesn't lead us to you, Luke. You're with the utility and do a fine job, but what's your appreciation?
Yeah, I agree with what's been. It's sanitation is like this building block of you have to have it in order to build your community around, and it's when you've got a system to deal with the poop, you've got a way to protect the environment and protect the public health. And so that's, I think it's one of the most exciting fronts to be on in the environmental and public health realm. And it's personally really fun for me right now because I'm doing potty training with my kids, and like to be able, I didn't know when I was little, where does it go when I flush? So to be able to connect it with them to, we're sending this down to dad's buddies at work, and it's just keep it going. So
that's fabulous
for them.
Yeah, you go home and you do the super dad pose, and they're like, "Daddy, this is awesome. Thank you so much for what you do."
That's exactly how it works.
I mean, really, like this is as important to figure out what to do with this stuff as the air we breathe, and to figure out how to keep it clean. You know what I mean? So yeah, this is gonna be good. And it makes you appreciate, too, I got another one. When your system works properly, we got to have some perspective. Like maybe you didn't pay your power bill this month. That really sucks. But when you're backed up and you're sitting there on the toilet and you're like, it's been 47 minutes. I have to go to the doctor. You know what I mean?
I would give up a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying.
Real trooper, JD.
We need a disclaimer. Don't do that. There's this thing called hemorrhoids. That'll be the next show.
You're running out of content at that point.
Yeah.
Platforms.
Oh man, but I mean, really though, that just makes it so much. When you go and you get down, you do your business, and there you go, and then it's clean getaway, bada bing. And that just the appreciation there. We got to have some perspective. All right, let's talk first. Where does it go and how does it work? So the first question I have is, what happens to human waste after we flush it? How is it processed? I think let's start with our homes first, which probably would be a little bit of you, Luke. Probably could take this one. I mean, anyone feel free to jump in. Like we mentioned, Brandon designs a lot of commercial residential systems and different things like that. So I'm sure he'll have something to add. And Veronica knows what poop is. And, porta potties are important. Look at Woodstock, what happened. People just throwing poop at each other. It's a problem. But Luke, what happens after we flush? Where does this stuff go?
Yeah. Well, in our context, in where we're served in Beckley Sanitary Board's context, or a public utility where there is a utility providing collection and treatment of the wastewater, the toilet flushes, everything that's in there goes down. It goes through the interior plumbing of your home, and then connects at some point to an exterior line, an exterior pipe, that then we think about it kind of like branches on a tree. It then connects into a public pipe that goes through typically it's going to go through a system of pipes. From my house, it's probably 6 or so miles of pipe to get down from there, pipe to manhole to bigger pipes, and eventually it all comes into the wastewater treatment plant at the beginning of or at the end of the pipes, beginning of the plant, the treatment process.
Interesting. So early on, civilization decided we got to build all these pipes. So did they know? Is there a calculation that's been around of like how many butts, according to how many feet of pipe, according to how the circumference of the pipe? Like, how do you all figure out how much stuff? And we're not leaving out pee. Pee's important,
right?
But poop's the big thing. But how do you calculate what the size of these pipes need to be and what you're going to do to get it to where it needs to go?
Yeah. There's definitely calculations. And Brandon could probably speak better to some of what those numbers are. But we typically deal with things on like all right, if it's a typical residential household, that's generally going to be served by a 4-inch line in the ground, and then when they come together, the pipe needs to get bigger. So we're all the vast majority of the main lines that we maintain are in the 6 to 8 to 10 inch diameter, and that's for Beckley. If you're dealing with a commercial property or something like that, you may need a different setup, a bigger pipe.
So is there rules of like, is 4-inch the standard?
That's the standard in our area for a residential exterior pipe.
Gotcha. Brandon, on the calculations aspect, like, I don't know, I'm just going to make up stuff. A company comes to you and says, we have 500 employees and y'all start this new build, and you got to figure out, what do you call it? The sewage system or whatever. Do you figure out what utilities are around? Do you map out a plan to connect to those, or do you do calculations of how to know what to buy and what to install?
Well, if it's a new facility, you want to see if there's an existing system around. If the utilities are at the curb, great. If not, you may have to do a on-site treatment process. And depends what industry it is. If it's 500 people in a commercial setting, it's typically residential. Is it industrial? Is there a process? Is there process water? Does it need pre-treatment? Then you get into the existing system capable to handle this. Well, what if there is some commercial usage? How much are you using? 1 shift, 2 shift, 3 shifts, 24 hours? You have to peak flow. Are there times that you operate that you don't? And you have to calculate from that point all the way back to the treatment plant if there's lift stations involved, but also the grades, the sizes of pipe, the inflow and infiltration per pipe per mile. All that matters to get it back to the treatment plant.
I'm going to do a lot of shaking my head like, oh, yeah. Yeah, that makes total sense. Do you use Pi 3.14 in anything?
Every day.
Every day? Okay.
Every day.
It's important, y'all. National Pi Day is October 7th. I don't know the real date. I don't know when it is.
March 14th.
March 14th. Oh, yeah.
People know.
We know.
See, that shows you what you're dealing with here. 3.14,
Oh, yeah.
March 14th. Look at that.
Okay.
I can put it together, though. You just got to explain it to me. All right. So let's talk about, are there particular issues that you run into, Luke, with older systems? I mean, anyone can answer this, but like, I imagine in a lot of rural areas, the problems are a lot different than, big cities like Beckley, West Virginia. I mean, like, this is Pigeon Forge to me, but, I imagine the issues are quite different. Is that true? Or
I would say so. I mean, there's definitely overlap, outside of or in different service areas. Well, you mentioned inflow and infiltration. Older pipes are susceptible. We've got basically where you're at the timestamp when your development started. You can probably expect that that's when a lot of your sewer lines went in. So, Beckley had a boom in the 30s and more in the 40s and then in the 50s. And we've got sewer pipes that, have some that have been in the ground for 80 plus years. Generally those are usually clay lines. There's some other materials that are in there that are older as well. And clay holds up pretty well. But you do have susceptibility to intrusion of groundwater into that, which doesn't sound like you generally don't see, unless it's a pressurized system, you don't see just sewer coming out of the pipe. But what can happen is you can take on groundwater, rainwater into those pipes. And then the pipes, now that 3.14 calculation, all of that is you've got extra water that's not accounted for by, the size of the pipe. So that can lead to overflows at different places. We also deal with a lot of roots. Pipes are in the ground a lot of times in hollers, and you have trees growing over, mature trees growing over, and they love, that's a water source and a nutrient source for vegetation. So roots will get into those lines, and that can cause a blockage, a backup, and so we find and clear those out. Those are some of the, just in connected to the age of the system, those are some of the things that we deal with a lot of.
Do you ever have like blowouts where it's just like, all right, there's poop in the ground?
We do. We typically, that's storm. It could be related to, roots, and there's just a backup of flow there. Usually it's more storm related. And so we have that obligation to, call that in to the Department of Environmental Protection, let them know there's been a spill, and how we're handling it and mitigating it. And, that's pretty typical, I think, for older cities as well.
It's great to know. Veronica, let's bring you in on this conversation. So scientifically, let me walk through this. What happens? Someone goes into a portable toilet. They take a dump. It stays there. Is that correct?
For a period of time.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right.
Then what happens?
Well, we can even back it up. There's preparation that the portable restroom operators do to prepare to receive your poop.
Excellent.
All right. So first you have to prepare the receiving tank. That's the hole you poop in, basically. So
Yep.
they already prep that with a very specific ratio of water to how big the tank is. And then we have what we call it in the industry is just a blue, but it's basically the biocide / fragrance that helps make it a little more appealing is maybe the wrong word for most people.
It's like if someone took a dump in the floor at Bath and Body Works.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you put your fun colors in there, the blue and whatever, to make it a little more visually appealing as well.
It does help.
It helps.
Do you think that's because water is blue typically? I mean, but it's not blue,
Mhm.
but it is when you look at it in like the ocean.
Boy, we could go down a whole rabbit hole here. The blue was chosen to be the color specifically because it has affiliation with being environmentally friendly, blue associated with water, blue being associated with cleaning products and cleanliness. So yeah, those biocides could be any color. They could be green, red, whatever, but blue is typically the industry standard. There are some with no color. Some people feel that's a little more environmentally friendly when you take dyes out of there. But yeah, blue was chosen specifically.
Is it like
Kind of the
food
standard.
coloring? I mean, like, how do you make it blue?
Dyes.
Does
Just
some
like you
kind of
would-
dye?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
So early on, they decided, like, let's trick these people.
Yeah.
Okay,
Pretty
perfect.
much.
Okay.
Pretty much. But yeah, so you go in, you're at your music festival, whatever, enjoying yourself, and you got to go. And hopefully our
Man.
job is to make it so that the portable restrooms are the more desirable choice to going out into the woods or behind your neighbor's tent or wherever. You go in, the tank's all ready for you. Hopefully, whoever ordered those portable toilets ordered enough service so that they stay clean and fresh for you.
Yeah.
And once you do your business, then some number of hours later, one of our service technicians drives a truck up, a big pump truck, has a tank on the back. It's equipped with a vacuum, hoses, the works. They put on their PPE. They get in there with their vacuum. And hopefully you all have been good porta potty goers and haven't been throwing your trash into the tank.
Oh, no. West Virginia is wide open.
We could have a whole nother segment on wild things found in porta potties.
I'm
But-
down for that.
Yeah, they go in, they have to bring their garbage picker if they have to pick out the big stuff, and they vacuum that all up. It goes into the tank, and then we go to visit someone like Luke, where we dump that into a waste treatment facility.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
So I have some experience filming this process. That's the only thing I can bring to this conversation. I do know when they turn the vacuum on, there is a different sound that chunky versus non-chunky makes when it sucks in the tube.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. But also, do not leave the vacuum on, because I've seen videos where the entire tank implodes.
Mhm.
So when you say vacuum, like it's not just a little Dyson that you have in your, like it's like this thing's going to suck sideways, son. Like it can suck a basketball. I don't even know what I'm saying right now. All right, let me get back on track. All right, so they poop in the thing. They take the tongs, they remove the cans, and all the the heroin, the guns, all the things that they can see. They take it out of the tank. They suck all that stuff up, and then it goes in the tank. And then they pour the new blue in. They spray it down all nice, like good companies don't wet the toilet paper. Some will spray the toilet paper, and it makes for a very good experience. But you got new fresh toilet paper in there. Bada bing, bada boom. Where does that truck go from there? I imagine, is there a correlation between Luke's position and where these trucks go around here, or do different companies have different processes?
There's a few different processes. If you're in the portable sanitation industry, to the public, you are just professional poop collectors. I can tell you the public doesn't think a lot about what has to happen before and what has to happen after. They just know occasionally you show up and clean and or remove that porta potty. But you're also kind of in the customer service business, you're kind of in the public health business, and you're in the logistics business. Just like if you were operating a FedEx truck, you have really specific routes for all your drivers, kind of optimize where they're stopping to service units throughout the day or throughout the week. So after they leave your spot, they're probably going to hit a few more places. And then depending, that truck will either make its way to a waste treatment facility, or I'm sure we'll get into capacity here later. Some operators have created their own on-site waste treatment systems if they don't have the ability at their local treatment plant to receive their waste. It'll go there. And basically, the system is similar to what happens with your sewage when you flush it down the toilet.
Heck yeah.
Your septic.
Which we're going to get into next with Luke. But also, I want to point out, this is the only time, of course, we could do a million puns today, but this is the only time I'm going to cuss. Do not call them shitters. It's very disrespectful to the industry. These are professionals. If they didn't exist, you would be getting some E. coli or some various, dysentery. I'm not a doctor, but those are the only two things I know that you do get.
Hep B.
Hep B. Yeah, you get a little hepatitis B if it wasn't for these people. So don't call them shitters. And porta potties, yes or no?
Yes.
You call them. You can call them
porta potties.
Okay, I've heard different. I can't remember. You can call them portable toilets.
Portable toilets, porta potties, porta johns. Now, when you get technical and you're talking to a fellow industry person, they become units, and then you have your plastics versus your trailers. We can get into a whole thing.
I want to do the whole thing. This is great. I know Scotty's Potties. Whoever created that company, talk about marketing. I have no clue who owns this thing, but I remember seeing that when I was young. I think it was in Ashland, Kentucky area. So if the owner of Scotty's Potties is listening, shout out. Good job. But you can call them potties? You
can call them potties.
Okay.
As long as you don't call them shit, we're okay.
Gotcha. All right. I'm going to cuss. All right. One more time. Shit done. All right. Those are the names of my cat's toilets. That's not disrespectful. That's the robots that go around.
I thought you were going to say that was the name of your cats. Period.
No. Lord, no. No, I love those babies. All right. So we just pumped out this nice, and I'm telling you, it's not the way it left your house. This forms some kind of a sauce. It's like this really chunky sauce, but it's also liquidy and sometimes like greenish blue, like a brown. There's like this color it forms. Is that how it comes to your place? Like when they hook up their hose, I imagine there's like a connection, like like a 4-inch connection somewhere, and then they hook up
when the portable, when they come in, and I don't know the color because I don't work directly down there very often, but yeah, we have at what we call the headworks, the beginning, the first point of of connection to the actual treatment of our the treatment that we do is also where the portable sanitation will bring their tanker trucks and empty into, we're the receiver. And so we're from there, it goes through it begins the treatment process, and it goes through a system of screening processes and into the rest of the treatment facility.
What is the pool thing with the thing that goes around in a circle and like sifts through? Is it like a sifter?
So there are clarifiers. We have primary and secondary clarifiers. Yeah. And it's sort of a skimmer on top that rotates slowly. Yeah. Please just correct me as I say something
I've
wrong.
heard all different things.
I've seen some nice
too.
poop foam generate sometimes.
So
Gotta
the
keep air in there.
clarifier, it's like the treatment is like a combination of, there's physical processes, biological processes, and chemical processes all kind of going on. And the clarifier is pretty much a physical process of you still have solids that you need. There's been treatment already to this point, but you still have solids that need to settle out. And so, the solids, as the clarifier spins it slowly so that heavy stuff has the ability to settle down into the bottom, and the water it's called a clarifier because the water gets clearer with time, and then the floating stuff will go up to the top and get skimmed off and trashed, and then the heavier stuff will settle to the bottom, and that's that then can get pumped out into the next part of treatment.
Heavier stuff, that clotting stuff, that stuff that like really is dangerous, I imagine, is the stuff that hangs into the end. Yeah. And if for people don't, can we go through poop biology? It's like mostly blood, right? Ain't it mostly blood? It's human waste, obviously, but I think 80% of it's literally blood. Anyway, I may look that one up. That'll be for the next show. But so, all right. So you clarify it all. You dare each other. You get the water filtered. Get you a glass, and then first one drinks it. Have you?
No, I have not.
Okay.
However, all right. Now, you might not believe it, but there's a whole world of portable sanitation operators, septic system sanitation workers, and we all get together from time to time for these big conferences and trade shows, and we have speakers even more wise and experienced than us. And at our last conference, we did have a gentleman. He does a little bit of work for the Gates Foundation, the World Toilet Organization, and so on to try to advance not just portable sanitation, but sanitation globally. And he was showing pictures of a system that he worked with on the Gates Foundation that purified waste so well that you could take a glass of water from it and drink it. And he shared video of him drinking a mason jar of water from this system. So it's possible.
That he was never seen again.
He was never. Shortly after he left our event, we have not heard from him since.
That was a joke. That's great. Man, what courage! That could kill you if it's not. If you're not confident. So that's very interesting. And we're going to get into repurposing this stuff. But I'm curious here. And I've filmed an overhead drone of them pumping stuff into a screen. And it's definitely like a bluish, greenish, brownish. It's like take all those paints, mix them up, and make them a gravy. It's kind of what we're looking at. Go ahead.
I can talk to color a little bit.
Let's do it. What color is it?
So, it's going to depend a little bit on who that load of waste and where it came from. Different operators are going to. They may be very specialized in what they're handling. They might only sanitize, or they might only service portable restrooms, or they might do portable restrooms and septic tanks, or the list could go on. So if you're seeing certain colors, especially blues and that sort of thing, that could be a load of sanitation waste that was mixed with septic waste. So that service technician is driving his truck, he's cleaning some porta potties, and then along his route, he may stop at someone else's house and pump out their septic tank too. So that can affect the color. But then you got to remember it's all organic material. So greens and browns and grays, those are all colors in nature as things are biodegrading and mixing and decomposing.
That makes sense. Yeah, because the blue's in there because of the portable industry. But then, they go around, you get a little bit of Sally's house, you get a little bit of Fred's house. You get a little bit of the Mount View High School football game. you know, and you make all this, you know, it all comes together.
And of course, people put things in there they're not supposed to, too.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I imagine, is that ever an issue with y'all, Luke? Do you ever get?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We do a lot of our public outreach is around what is okay to flush.
Mhm.
And we come back to the 3 P's. You can flush poo, pee, and toilet paper, and everything else. And it's usually, I mean, it's real heavy on wipes. Like what we love. And like I said, potty training kids, we love baby wipes, but the wipes, they go in the trash. Toilet paper is designed to break down. Everything else is not. So paper towels, wipes, that kind of thing. And yeah, you see, I mean, at the beginning of the plant, probably, although not as much festival type stuff, but probably similar to what you see in the portable. Like at the beginning, at the headworks where it all comes in, you see everything that people have flushed.
Heck yeah. You're sitting there taking bets like, I bet you there's a banana today. Banana peel right now.
Yeah, I've seen some crazy stuff hit the bar screen.
Oh, yeah. Really?
Yeah. Oh,
Hit the what?
It's called the bar screen.
Oh, okay.
It's called bar screen. It has a manual rake or automatic rake. It actually cleans it and starts the first process. But like pop bottles, cans, I mean, just stuff should not make it through a sewer is there.
I have a question for Brandon.
Uh-oh.
On some of the on-site, especially smaller, like residential on-site treatment systems, is there a process for like macerating some of those solids before it
Not
goes
in
to the
your
next
typical
stage?
septic tank, no.
Yeah.
No. If in certain cases where the residents will not flow by gravity to the main, you'll put in a grinder station. Sometimes you want those, sometimes you don't, because it is a liability at that point. They only have a certain amount of capacity and 1 or 2 homes hooked to it. You lose power, you have an issue very quickly. Grinder stations, yes. If it makes it to a lift station, you can have the design of the impellers in the bottom of the lift station to macerate and tear up pretty much anything. But most of the time when you see stuff like that, it's through the direct gravity part of the system.
Heck yeah.
Stuff that you shouldn't see make it through a sewer. Oh yeah. The best ones, jails and nursing homes, medical facilities.
Oh, jails. I thought you meant GEL. I'm like,
no,
what?
No.
Okay.
Fatberg.
Gotcha.
The wipes will cause that. But
Tattoo gun comes through. It's like, there you go.
we've actually had to put a bar screen in a manhole outside of a jail in a county courthouse before because people were flushing jumpsuits. Who knows what? Oh yeah. It is bar screens at facilities like that are very important.
Some powerful toilets.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Well, they have nothing else to do. Why not?
That sounds like my house because I know after I do my business, I don't like a gravity flowing toilet. Like I want it to sound like I'm flying to Chicago. Like really.
Yes.
Take off.
That's what I told the plumbers. I called them. I was like, I don't know what this is called, but I want it to sound like a jet engine when I flush this thing. I want it to go down so fast.
You got to pressurize.
Yeah. And I mean, you'll go in there like it's so bad. My daughter's like, I'm not hitting that. That's too loud. Like it's way too loud. I mean, if the cats were sitting there playing around and the other one hit the handle, they may like get sucked down the toilet. Like it's intense. But that's very interesting to know. So, also I've filmed, we'll talk about repurposing for me. I mean, I could talk about size, color, and frequency all day. But I've also filmed, repurposing, I don't know what you call this plant where they go to this place and then they pump off into these tanks that are in the ground, and then the company there has to check the pH level and get it to a certain level, and they load it into this sprayer, and they take this tractor out onto this field, and I swear it looks like Jurassic Park because they're just spraying poo all over this thing, and you got 12-foot tomato plants, you got cucumbers the size of the Oscar Mayer mobile, and it looks like this oasis, and they spray all this poo all over this field, and they do that over and over and over in different sections. Is that something we do in West Virginia, or what happens to it after it leaves you, Luke?
Yeah, there's depending on your area and the regulations and what's been sort of set up, and we've been able. So we we talk about biosolids coming as one of those products of the wastewater treatment process, sanitation process. So the solids are separated from the liquids, and to some extent they're treated differently. And the solids that come off are, one of the things that happens in wastewater treatment is you introduce microbes and they break down the poo and they turn it into a biosolid product, something that is a really strong fertilizer. And so that can be, in a lot of instances, that can be land applied. There are places throughout the country where that can be sold as a product, it's cleaned to the level that it's an approved fertilizer in all these different contexts, and it's effective. We have in the
Is it cannibalism to fertilize vegetables with your own poop?
Cannibalism from
that's the circle of life, JD.
Right.
I mean, it's on the line. It's like, it's not quite cannibalism, but like, it's a little weird.
Yeah. So currently in Beckley, we're that goes to the landfill.
Gotcha.
So it's a very, relatively speaking, it's a very clean product, but the regulations make it a little more hoops to jump through to be able to like sell that or even land apply it for free in an agricultural sense.
Oh,
JD.
yeah. We're going to talk. Go ahead.
I am passionate about land application.
Okay.
Can I share some more?
Heck
Please.
yeah. We're about to talk 10-pound trouts in McDowell County. But
Okay, here's the thing. Land application used to be a lot more common than it is. Part of that is because of people's fear of poop, and assuming that poop is gross. And poop isn't gross, poop is poop. It's the most natural thing ever.
we don't eat it, but
We don't eat it.
it's not gross.
But it's not gross. It just is.
Yeah.
And to Luke's point that there's some red tape to be able to land apply. And of course, certain areas are going to be more appropriate for land application, and others, you don't want to be too close to a watershed or that sort of thing. But to your point, talking about those giant tomatoes and foot-long squash and whatever, septic waste, once it's gotten to that point, is the best fertilizer we could have. And right now across the country, there are places that have regulations that ban land application of organic matter, poop, but then require fertilization with chemical fertilizers because poop is gross. But we'd rather have the chemical fertilization. When the poop is the better fertilizer, it's the safer fertilizer. Contrary to popular belief, when it's land applied correctly and in the correct environment, that septic, that waste, that poop doesn't travel more than 2 feet from where it drops on the ground.
Yeah. That makes sense. Oh, and then you got the small pie-minded people that, like me, they're like, is it cannibalism? Like, that's probably a dumb question. But, I think a lot of people are wondering these things because when you hear like, oh, yeah, where'd you get your fertilizer from, Fred? Like, what do you mean? Like, he brought it to... No, he takes a dump in a bucket and then he adds like...
Well...
newspaper to it and then mixes it up.
Well, here's the alternative is, as Luke said, it's can be land applied. If it's not land applied, it goes to the landfill.
Yeah.
And once it's in the landfill, now that's releasing methane.
Heck yeah.
And we don't have like long term, we don't have an excess of landfill space.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that we can do that doesn't send material that could be efficiently applied somewhere else to a landfill, anything we can do is a good thing.
Yeah, it makes sense. Is there issues that we run into with land ownership when it comes to that? Like, seems like West Virginia would have a lot of land that we can spray poop on.
We do.
Okay.
But people are grossed out about it.
Okay, gotcha. That's good to know. I am too, but I'm changing that. This episode's gonna change everything. Like, they're gonna get legislation going. Like, everyone's gonna be like, please poop on my land. It's gonna be a whole thing. But are there any other particular initiatives, like maybe, I don't know if it's composting, or are there any kind of organizations that you all know of that are kind of doing some things different in West Virginia, or something that maybe someone listening could be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to poop in this bucket and then like keep it and, put it outside with the leaves, and then we'll make a concoction. Like, does that make sense, Veronica, or do you know?
If you are doing your own home composting, I just encourage you to do plenty of research. stay hygienic. Gloves. We talked about gloves. But so the PSAI, we're an international association. And so our members are portable sanitation operators from all over the globe, but mostly the United States. And there actually is a company that I have really enjoyed watching over the last couple years. They're based in Vermont, and they also service the Boston area. And it's a relatively young company. I think they've been around 5 or so years. But they are founded on their whole goal is environmental sustainability, and reduce, reuse, recycle. It basically, if they can't do those things, they don't want to be in business, and I respect that. They are working with making the waste that goes in portable toilets more quickly available to be composted. And I don't want to speak too much beyond what I know, but they are using a urine diversion system that sort of immediately separates the liquid from the solid wastes. And they're the anything they use where other companies would be using the blue with the biocides and fragrances and that sort of thing. What they're using takes out anything that couldn't be safe for land application or composting. Mm-hmm. And so they're kind of making the waste almost readily available to be composted. Now, they still collect it and do the composting. I'm not sure if they are reselling that or not. But what's interesting is that other companies have tried similar things in this industry, and they're the first one that I have seen to actually make it to that 5-year mark or so. So I'm really curious to see how they grow, and if they can make their operation scalable and something that could be applied to other places and just economically viable.
How fun. That sounds like this toilet I saw one time that has like a hose hook up to the lid. I can't remember what it's called, but it sucks the smell out of the room. I mean, that don't sound nothing like that, but I thought it was cool. I don't know where they are now. I can't remember what it's called, but look up like toilet seat smell sucker thing.
Smell suckers. We want to hear from you.
Yeah.
There was one, you mentioned state parks, and there was, I think it's still in operation at Camp Creek State Park. There was a composting toilet that was installed because the state parks have a lot of trouble with seasonality. Like in the winter, you're not using it at all, or very, very little. And then you might get thousands of people through that toilet in the summer. And so they had, there was a little informational placard down at this it was glorified outhouse basically at Camp Creek, and it was a specific species of worms that are very, very good at composting, breaking down human waste. And so it's perfect for, and they can feed really intensely for a season, and then they can go basically without food for months at a time. And so I think that's the kind of thing that's like, oh, it's creative because it has to be.
Mm-hmm.
Riddle me this. So that reminds me, I went to this lake. I won't say what lake. I don't know if this is a thing. You go out to use the toilet and you literally could like swan dive into the lake. Mm-hmm. Is that legal?
It's there.
It's there. That's not supposed to be a thing, right?
Is it a state park? I mean,
no.
Well,
ish.
But
no.
Maybe you mean not. The toilet is so close to the lake you can swan dive?
No, you look down.
It's over top of water.
You look down and you see the fish waiting for your gift.
No.
Like they're like bloop bloop, waiting.
They say the solution to pollution is dilution. Yeah. All of a sudden it's diluted out.
We don't say that. Disclaimer.
Right.
We in this room don't say that.
So, people fish in this lake, Brandon. Like someone could take a dump and then someone could be fly fishing right next to it and then hear the dump hit the water.
The splash.
This is crazy.
Yeah, I would not think that that's...
I don't think that's legal.
No.
I think catch and release is the key here.
Your own judgment.
How is it not? I mean, I don't want to get anyone in trouble.
Yeah, things that fly under the radar.
But I'm like, what if I fall through this thing? Like,
those are the questions we got to be asking, raising up the ladder.
There you go. There you go. Do with that what you will.
I think too on the reuse thing. I don't think we see as much of it in West Virginia because we're so water rich.
Yeah.
But like other places in the country where, that gray water.
Yes.
Before it, like if you can recycle that and treat it, and then or use you're using water that maybe has, the liquids mixed in with it, urine mixed in with it to, to flush or, things like not the drinking water, obviously, but there's a lot of use of, creativity that's driven by the demand of, we just don't have an excess of water. But I think in West Virginia, we still have an excess of water availability.
Right.
We're a water rich place.
I read somewhere there used to be an ocean here. Is that wrong? I don't know. There was some, I'm looking into some story like hundreds of millions of years ago.
You got the coal seams, had to be something.
It had to be something, right?
Geologically.
Yeah.
Yep.
One more legal issue that I want to clarify. So I found this out the hard way. I went camping, and I'm not a camper, but we did like, it was like an Airbnb for RVs, and we had a great time for 6 hours. And after that, it was great being with your family, but at the same time, I'm not a camper. But I'm taking a shower, and we've been washing dishes. We've been doing all these things. Not a care in the world. I take a shower, and then water starts pulling up at my feet. And I'm like, what is this? And then it clicked. Oh, you're in an RV, dummy. Like, this stuff doesn't go anywhere. So, oh, man. DEP, don't write me up. I'm telling you this as an experience, okay? What I would have done, I didn't do this.
Allegedly.
What I would have done in that situation is, first off, figure out where this goes. And then I go out the RV, I walk around. I'm like, there's handles, and there's 2 of them. And I'm like, now I got decisions. So I'm like, okay.
I see where this is going.
So odds are,
door number 1.
yeah, odds are one of these is the right decision. One of these is the wrong decision. But first off, I think they were both potentially, maybe if I would have done this, wrong decisions. But thankfully, we picked the one that didn't smell. So we do the thing, and then I try to figure out, I'm like, okay, well, I probably would just dump it in a bucket and throw it on the hillside. But to clarify, that's illegal, correct? So I didn't do that. But I also heard tips. They were like, hey, what I allegedly would have done in that situation is I would have left it barely open overnight. If someone does that, is that illegal?
It's a discharge. It's probably illegal.
Okay. So you can't dump that gray water out. Thank God I didn't.
I wouldn't.
Yeah. So you got to go to a pump station, right?
Dump station.
Yeah, there's specific places where, depending on what is in the water, there's specific places where it can be dumped. And there's private places that can, they have to be permitted, but they can receive that.
Yeah. Well, this would have been just shower water, and there's a separate section for the poopy and the pee. Okay.
Black and gray.
What is it? Okay, so black waters though.
Toilet.
Why don't they call it brown water?
Good question.
Well, like, it's not. If it's black, you got to go to the hospital.
You got an issue.
Yeah, you got problems. Anyway, all right. You heard it here first. Don't do that like I did not do. So yeah, good stuff. All right, I mentioned 10-pound trouts. Now, this isn't against any rural area. Let me say that first off. I grew up in McDowell County, loved to death. A lot of these rural communities have rivers nearby, and the way we used to do things is we run a pipe from the house into the river. And this is an important issue to talk about. Not a lot of people like to talk about it, but there's still some rivers, not mentioning no names, in the state that have straight pipes running to the river. I mean, New River's one of them, as far as what I understand. I mean, like, pretty much every river in West Virginia, odds are you have at least a couple pipes running actively that is pooping in the river. Why is this? Does anyone know why we used to do this? Did we not have any better options? Like, I imagine, like, at one point they were like, we poop in the river and we drink from, like, upstream. There's like, here's our pooping point. So you get rid of it there, and then you get the water up here, and it'll be okay, But how did this happen? Anybody in particular?
Well, I'll speak just from like historical and Beckley, like a lot of our communities was founded during the boom, or grew heavily during the boom around coal mining and railroad. And there came a point when you're building these houses, you've got to send it somewhere. And there are articles from back in 30s and 40s referencing the turbulent waters of the streams nearby being a good place to send the poop.
Did you say turbulent?
Turbulent.
Okay, gotcha.
That's the pun that
was a good one.
Yeah.
I'll be here all day.
Just the movement of the water basically was enough to carry the problem away and deal with the problem. And I think that's when you're thinking upstream versus downstream, that's in a certain mindset. Yeah, that's enough. Just carry it away so it's not my problem. And then there were disputes from people downstream, basically, that, hey, we're now taking the poop from thousands of homes upriver, and we're noticing it because it all gathers here. And so it was just mimicking the watershed. Everything was they laid the pipes first, basically, and then they came in with treatment later.
This is fabulous. There's so many metaphors to today's society.
Oh yeah,
it's like this is social media. It's like I'll poop here and then it'll flow on you, and then you figure it out. But this is that's great. I didn't realize all. So it initially started as out of butt, out of mind, type
Outside,
type mentality. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, got it. So around when was it? Like around the 40s, or was it earlier than that a lot of these communities started figuring out, like, okay, well, we're going to start building some infrastructure and processing this stuff? Because I imagine processing it didn't occur till even the 1900s, but I'm just guessing. I don't know. But it's like anything else. As science grows and we learn more, like we used to not wash our hands,
right?
Before surgery. So, is there a way? Like, was it government funded early on? Was it coal company funded or industry funded, or how did it start?
Well, yeah, I'll just speak to Beckley's, and then I know there's broader perspective in the room. I would. In Beckley, it was circa 30s into the early 40s when treatment began. So the collection had kind of been happening for a little while, and then there was an outcry. We don't want this in the creek. We're seeing it, we're smelling it. Like, it was that big of a problem that it wasn't. It was a visible issue, the amount of poop that was coming down into the creek. And of course, storms would make it, that much worse. High water would make it that much worse. And so then following kind of that newspaper chain, first there was an outcry raised, hey, we need to do something about this. And then basically the sewer utility was kind of born out of that. The city established the board and, the sanitary board, and began to collect and treat. Well, then they funded that through a rate, that you're going to pay a sewer bill for the purpose of collecting and treating this wastewater. And then the next article is like about there's public outcry because now we have to pay a sewer bill. So that was kind of the origin. And we've just been building infrastructure since then in Beckley's context.
Awesome. I hope everyone is really appreciating the system we have in place. And I know, from my standpoint, I've lived in several West Virginia communities. Beckley has an exponentially lower cost than most. And I imagine that's due to the overhead, but also there's old infrastructure that causes a lot of leaks, and there's a lot of different things that goes into the pricing of this stuff. But Brandon, do you have an idea, like if you were to say, how hard would it be to modernize a lot of these rural communities in West Virginia? Like, what exactly would that take? Would it take trillions of dollars? Would it take, decades? Or
well, do you start with the unserved areas, the underserved areas, the upgrades, the plant? I mean, you could take a look at it on multi different stages there. Trillions. I mean, you have all these unserved areas like you're talking about, straight pipe to the creek, whether or not they were able to fit a septic tank there or not, or they tried to do their due diligence and they didn't have a leach field that goes to the river. Bringing in a collection system so they can actually be served by a public system. It's tremendously expensive, especially when you bring in the federal funding. As to extend these systems into these very rural areas, and West Virginia's not flat. We have to work on grade, on slope, turns with manholes. It's tremendously expensive to build sanitary sewers in this terrain. And it's hard to quantify that. And I'm not even sure that it would be economically feasible at a certain point. That when you have a customer paying a bill of 30, 40, 50, let's call it $100. At that point, these systems are so big and the reach is so far, they can't operate at that point for that cost.
Let me ask you, Brandon, do you have anything to add specifically about the funding side of things to kind of clarify on I don't know, there's a difference on the commercial side versus residential side, or, how that stuff works or where it comes from?
Well, there is. So you have the different types of users. You have residential, commercial, and industrial users. Every dime that the utility has to operate these systems come from the ratepayers, and that's it. So when you go to do a project where it's an extension or an upgrade, you have to look at a funding package. And obviously, everybody wants grant funding. Sometimes you end up with loans. But you take a look and you try to keep your rates within a certain percentage of the median household income to make sure you're not overloading certain residents. Again, this is based off of certain census data. They usually every 5 or 10 years will pull data and have a different set. But we try to keep these rates on a level playing field by mixing the grant and funding, the loan packages into the funding package, and trying to produce these projects for as economical as we can to these utilities so they're sustainable. And also with the funding, there's certain levels of loans over time periods and rates and things like that. But we always try to help out produce these projects for the most economical standpoint to get them in the ground.
Gotcha. Makes sense in loans. So people go to the bank and be like, hey, I really need to poop.
I mean,
give me $200 million.
You're talking loans. I mean, the cost of projects these days are insane. The way that they have to use, if you use federal money, you have to use federal wage rates. And these fees are exorbitant to produce these projects. And when you're talking loans in the order of $10 million for 40 years, you're talking about sizable loans at this point.
Yeah. What is the typical, so I want to talk profit margin, and you don't have to get specifics, but like what's an average profit margin that someone's trying to hit on these projects so people will know? Like, is it 1%? Is it 2%?
You're not trying to make a profit.
Okay.
You're providing a service.
Got it.
And you're providing a service to continue to operate this system, to keep upgrading, to keep expanding. You're providing a service. You're not there to make a profit. You're there to provide that service.
Got it. So you got to pay people and you try to break even just, to the penny. That makes sense. Would the solution be like, so let's get into septic tanks. And I know, Veronica, maybe you can speak to this one. So one solution that we have is a septic tank, which is basically you dig a big hole, you get, I don't know how many gallons the size of the tank is. You put this tank in the hole, you run your pipes to this tank, and then you clean this tank out every so often. I'm not sure what the process is, but is that kind of the gist of it, or is there any other particulars there?
That's the gist of it. And I don't know if this is a hot take. Maybe you guys would feel differently, but I would advocate for more septic tanks in some of those rural areas that can accommodate them. Now, you get back in some of our haulers back here and you can't put in a septic tank. But where it's feasible, I'd almost advocate for a septic tank instead. And part of that is, I think in a perfect world, when all systems are functioning the way they're supposed to and they're up to date and good on repairs, then probably public sewer and running lines out to these communities would be the ideal, maybe more environmentally friendly. But to Luke's point earlier, we still have infrastructure that is nearing or over 80 years old. And so you're spending, to Brandon's point, a huge amount of money to run public sewer into some of these communities so that sewer can then go into systems that was made 50, 60, 70 or more years ago, maybe not to accommodate that much and needs repairs. And we live in a very wet area. So Luke was talking about, we get these big storms, heavy rains, and that goes into those pipes. It overflows at our treatment facilities. And then we got problems, or it seeps up from the ground from lift stations. Water's running downhill or sewer's running downhill to the lift stations, and it comes up. Whereas a septic tank, that's going to be more contained. It's going to be an upfront big chunk for that homeowner, but you think about grants funding to help them be installed. And then it's maybe, right now my sewer bill, I live alone, and my sewer water bill is over $100 a month. And it's just me in my house.
Too much McDonald's.
Over $100 a month. So a septic tank needs to be serviced depending on your usage, size of the tank, how many people are in your house, maybe between 2 to 4 years. And that might cost you between $250 to $500, which looks like a big scary bill up front. But here I am paying $100 a month connected to public sewer.
So to clarify, we got 3 systems in West Virginia. We got the utility, which is everyone's pipes runs to the cities, and they take care of it. You got the septic, which is a privatized, what do we call it that? Like a private funded, like consumer funded solution that you clean out every 3 to 4 years. That saves you that monthly bill, but has a pretty big cost. And like you mentioned, it looks like a big cost, but over time it's not. But we don't save money, Veronica. It's like, oh my God, I got to pay $500 every 4 years. This is awful. But so you got that, and then you got the wide open method straight in the river. Is there anything else we're missing, or is that essentially what? Is there like a community septic tank solution to where, like, this hauler all puts this tank across the road and then everything runs there?
You can, but there's design calculations for a sewer holding tank. Can you do decentralized treatment? Can you do a lagoon, a small package plant? The holding tanks become really tricky because you have to have a certain amount of storage and detention. And at that point, you're talking about trucks that can't even get there to service those tanks, to pump them. It's incredible the size that you would need to have even just a handful of houses at that point.
How many gallons we talking? Like, estimate, or do you measure in gallons? Like, it'd be like X amount.
Well, yeah, gallons per day. You can typically anticipate about 120 gallons per day per residence. Multiply that times 7, and then however many houses. Oh yeah, I'm not good on that.
840 gallons.
Yeah. Then about a week at a time. You need to have those tanks to at least hold 1 week, and then looking at the pumping rate for that, how many gallons are you talking about every week is going to have to be pumped? Yeah. It's much easier to put in a small package plant, say 5,000 gallons a day, 10, 15, 20, whatever it is, to put in those small plants and have those operated. But again, they have to be maintained, is the big issue with those.
Gotcha. So there are a lot of those smaller PSDs. Is that what it's called? Or like the plants you're mentioning?
Package plants, extended aeration units.
Gotcha.
So the public service district may be the one who oversees a handful of them. They're in state parks and things like that, campgrounds. So they're just spread throughout. But some of them are ran by HOAs, a water association, things like that. Those become real issues. Again, with those residents, they may or may not be paying a fee. It may be included in their yearly association dues. And that is a ticking time bomb for those.
I think that's you've got, like, the extremes are kind of easier. Like in a densely populated area, a localized wastewater treatment makes Beckley, it makes really good sense to bring it all together. And then, you're paying significant amount to upgrade that plant as the community grows and as regulations change and infrastructure deteriorates. Like, you're constantly spending on it, but it makes sense because we have 8,000 sewer customers that's spread across all of these ratepayers, and we do that as a community. Then the other extreme of being up on a ridge top somewhere, a septic tank makes really good sense. But it's the in-betweens, which West Virginia and Southern West Virginia and Appalachia has so many of those in-betweens where, it's these package plants.
You can look at like the coal communities in Southern West Virginia. I'm from Logan County, so we have a lot of these coal camps up, these haulers and things. There's no room to physically put a septic tank and absorption field. So you can put in these smaller decentralized package units and put them in the ground. They'll last plenty long. They're everywhere. They're all over the place. And everyone knows how to operate them. but they have to be maintained.
Mhm.
It's an option. Like Lou said, when you get into these really high density areas, it's the public sewer is the way to go.
Is there a typical problem that you all are running into of systems that are not maintained? Like, what starts to happen over time when you say not maintained? Like you grease the ball bearings, or how do you maintain these things? Like, what's the regular maintenance on them?
Luke, chime in if I step out of line
Go
here,
for it.
because I see this from a different side, from a design standpoint. You can start with the roots, the clogs, and things like that. Then it starts to become in maybe a break or a repair. You have a pump that goes out. But what if you don't keep replacing those pumps? What if it's a duplex or a triplex station and suddenly it has one or no pumps in it? At that point, it is large scale failure is imminent. At that point, it's catastrophic. It's going to overflow. You have a issue there that you don't really want to deal with. And the longer it goes, the worse it's going to be to fix it and correct it. And expensive environmental issues. I mean, it's just, did I answer that kind of correctly?
Yeah.
Short term, small problems. Long term, bigger problems is the way to portray that.
Could long-term problems mean poisoning the water system or anything like that, the drinking water system? Or does it?
One little break could be one simple mainline break, and you don't know about it. It just, for instance, if you have a break underneath a stream or a creek, and all of a sudden, and again, we live in the bottom of a funnel, right? We live around these streams. If you're going through down the system, and all of a sudden you have a mainline break and the stream's flowing into it, if you have another one from like a flood situation, well, now it's just pouring out. The entire contents of the sewer system are in the stream at that point. So it's not uncommon to see that. And you have a flood event, 100-year flood event, or things like that. It's going to happen.
Right.
But it's even small, like a break, and doesn't even get to a pump. So
Yeah. Well, imagine in a lot of these, because let's be honest, West Virginia built the nation. A lot of these coal communities had this infrastructure back then.
Mhm.
And now we're seeing, look up Gary, West Virginia, look up Keystone, West Virginia, where you have a smaller population that's been left, and the expertise isn't there. It's not that just there's no one there to manage it and manage the upkeep. So regular citizens are going to live their lives. They're going to go work at Tug River Health Clinic. They're going to go and do their thing. And over time, the deterioration has caused these communities to have huge blackout periods where their water ain't running for months.
Mhm.
Keystone's the one that comes to mind. This has been for years
Right.
that they can't get this place to maintain running water. So I think a lot of the things you're mentioning comes into play of like, we already see what the future could be if we don't maintain it. Where a lot of these coal communities are suffering from it with the lower
I
populations.
think that highlights one of the other the hard to quantify expense is you've got to have people who can run the system. And I mean, that's been one of the coolest things about this industry is the talent and just the intelligence of, I mean, the folks that run our treatment plant, the calculations that they're doing day in and day out, the numbers that the things that they intuitively know to look for in a spreadsheet to be able to tell if, we take like all the waste that comes in from the portable. We call it high strength waste. It's very concentrated. It's either out of the porta johns or it's out of like a grease trap or something from a restaurant. Well, if that comes in at a strange, I wouldn't know if it's a strange number, but the operators who are, they have to be certified at that through the state at that level in order to operate these plants. So that's like hats off to these folks who are running these plants on the water and the wastewater side. And then two, that's a workforce that has to be grown up, and it's not been popular, I guess, for a lot of years. And we need people, nerding out over it so that we can, make it like it. We need this right here to like, this is and it's a fantastic career opportunity. But do you have, like in those rural communities, do you have a PSD established? Do you have a utility established? Do you have a rate established? I mean, those are all big things that have to happen in order to be able to afford a $10,000-$20,000 pump that goes out. And if you're talking 200 people have to buy that pump, and they have to do it twice a year, that's a bad deal.
Thanks for bringing that up. I'm not going to call anyone out. Here's what I will say. and not that people don't have the expertise. There's a lot of people in these smaller communities that are working with what they got and have huge water bills and sewage bills. I'm talking car payment level, some of these areas. And I think a lot of what you're mentioning is why they're having to kind of just always work under pressure of like, okay, what do we fix today? Stuff constantly breaks. And this is me just picturing this. I don't know if this is the case, so if someone call me if I'm full of crap, but they got the knowledge. They don't have the resources that they need to completely reconstruct this system. So instead, their job is putting Band-Aids every day.
They're reactive instead of proactive.
Yeah.
They can't afford to be.
Yeah. And they don't really have an option. And then that in turn, the community's mad at them and they're like, it ain't me.
Right.
You know, like we don't have the resources, you know, and then pandemonium and people's like, I'm moving to, you know, wherever, I'm going to dig a hole and, you know, whatever. But that's just how we are. But I understand all that. Like, I don't want someone listening that has one of these tough jobs to think that we're pointing fingers. It's just like, actually, your job is kind of more vital to maintaining quality of life for these communities than anyone else's. Because Luke's working with, I mean, he's cooking with gas up here.
Right.
Like, we got things set up, we got things rolling, and they are proactive and they stay ahead. So it just puts a really like the perspective, the diverse perspective of daily life for your position. You know, let's switch that with someone. Name any rural community of their operations manager is probably completely different.
Right.
I imagine.
Do they even have an operations manager?
Right.
Exactly. They probably have a guy that's like, turn the key on the pump, and if it starts smoking, add some oil.
They have a handful of operators, and they may or may not have a chief operator that's a supervisor. And
Right.
they have somebody collecting the bills in the office. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some options here? Like, I mean, other than, you know, just saying, all right, throw $1 trillion to Gary, West Virginia. I mean, I'm for that. I love that, but that's not going to happen.
Right.
I mean, it's hard for them to get a $150,000 bridge built right now.
Right.
So what are some options here that people can do other than moving? Because you got all these people that have roots here. They don't want to leave. Their water's been orange for 3 years and they can't figure it out.
Right.
What would you say? Are there like, and this may not be any of your worlds, but are there, you know, places they can reach out to see about getting some type of personalized system or some kind of well or something to help?
First, I would recommend they reach out to their elected officials. Polite persistence. Hey, we need this. This is affecting our quality of life. Water and wastewater is a quality of life issue for us. Can you help us? Can you help identify some resources? Can you guide us to create a PSD in an area and help set this up, extend, identify someone nearby who can take this over? That's your first step to really start right there.
And on that too, I mean, y'all know we don't get political, but this is like different administrations operate differently, and it's nothing against any administration, but I imagine every 4 years, things could shift on how we approach things. But it seems like infrastructure is always somewhat on the top of people's lists, but we just can't pull the trigger to get it done in some of these communities. Is that because they have a long list, essentially? And it's kind of like, you know, what do you think? Is there some kind of water tests they can get at their house to show like data for like, hey, I got this test done. Here's the data. If it'll help you, or to kind of get them to listen more, or does that make sense?
This is where, if I may,
Sure.
talking about potty training our kids quite a bit on this in this conversation. I would say our job is really kind of potty training the public.
There you go.
Yeah.
But I think to what Brandon was getting at, I think education comes first. because there is a long list in any municipality, in any government, in any community, there's a long list of things that they want and things that they need and what's most exciting and what's the most interesting platform for your local politicians to advocate for. There's all these different factors. And as we've already touched on, when it comes to sanitation and waste, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind until it's backing up into your home or your septic tank is flooding your yard or your grease trap is flooding and closing down your restaurant. And suddenly now they're mad because why can't you get here to fix my problem right now?
Oh, yeah.
Instead of when I had scheduled maintenance a year ago.
Yeah.
But I think education is the biggest thing. And when people understand, then they can see the bigger picture. They see how it matters to them, how it matters to their community, where costs are coming from. So if there is a price increase on your utility bill or your septic tank technician, when that is costing more, they'll understand why, because of all the expenses before and after to manage that waste safely for you. And that's why I love working for an association, because that's the purpose of an association, is to be the voice and the advocate for a whole industry. And so I'd say, in addition to thinking at the individual level, in addition to reaching out to your local government, your representatives, and making your voice heard, also see what kind of associations are in your state or region or country, and see what they're doing. Most states have some form of a wastewater treatment association. There are also national level ones. Right now, the PSAI, our association, is working with the National Association of Wastewater Techs and the National Association for Wastewater Recycling. Both of those organizations, national level, are paying for lobbyists right now to help provide more infrastructure and get our needs higher on the list of demands. Mm-hmm. And so we're trying to get in and support that too. So your associations is the way to have one big collective voice and get someone in the room with the people that can make a change.
Yeah. Was you going to say something, Brandon?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So, and like Brandon mentioned, like we gotta be respectful and we gotta come up with ways to present these issues effectively, because barking and not necessarily taking initiative to be trained and know knowledge wise what you're saying probably ain't gonna get you anywhere. It's just gonna get you tons of reactions on Facebook, and that's about it. But as far as getting things done, if you're a legislator, listen, and let's get on these rural communities' infrastructure. I mean, also, there's people that are hungry. There's all kinds of issues. I get that. But this is one that we should have been on 30 years ago, and now we're kind of like playing catch up. And a lot of people are feeling hopeless when it comes to turning on the faucet and seeing something clear, I mean, I remember growing up just where I was, it was a thing like, don't drink from the sink. It's always been a thing. Mm-hmm. And that's very sad. Now, Beckley, I feel confident. I'm like, I'm going to drink this. I got my man, Luke. Right. He's separating the poo. He's, the things are operating, but not everywhere has that.
Right. And we work with, of course, Beckley Water Company is the utility provider for the drinking water. And that's the amazing thing about the drinking water side, is that when it's working the way it's supposed to, they're meeting they're checking all of their numbers to where you can drink it straight from the tap. And it's a little thing that we often take for granted, but that's a huge deal to live in a society where you have that just provided. And I think that like the potty train, I love that. I think the more that we put this in front of people, the more that we talk about it, the better, because for years and years, the mentality has been to capitalize on the out of sight, out of mind, because, well, if, as a utility, like, well, nobody's checking it, it's just easier to do our thing quietly and not draw attention to ourselves. And now we've flip-flopped that, and we want, lawmakers, we want ratepayers, like, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it when we have an issue, we're going to make that known, because we're not trying to hide anything. And that's the only way that we can highlight just how big a deal this is. And another thing I think with like the associations that's so powerful is, again, to the human capacity that you might have in a small community there are all kinds of, grant and low interest loan programs that fund infrastructure, but they're competitive. And so if you don't have a person who's going to write a grant or write a letter to a lawmaker, then your small community is going to be out, they're going to be out competed by the larger communities that do have that. And so to help that money get to the places that it needs to be, those associations can help bolster that. And hey, we can come alongside you. And the Watershed Association locally has done a septic pumping program for some of the rural communities in Raleigh County. That was fantastic. That's a huge win. Those properties that may not have been ready to self-fund getting their septic system pumped, there's money for that, and they were able to connect with it because the local association ran a program.
Gotcha. What is the sanitary board like? Say you have, we won't, you can get into this as much as you want, but you have a customer who's having a rough time. Is there a way that the sanitary board can kind of, like, what do you suggest to those people? Is there a way that you all try to help them get back on their feet? Or is it kind of like at the same time, you got to pay bills too? And eventually, if you run out of money, all this is going to be kaput. So
right.
Is there like dialogue amongst you all on how to deal with those situations?
There is. Yeah. For bill assistantship and all of that. Yeah. Typically, sewer, utility bills typically are eligible for, the assistantship. And if we have a customer who reaches out about that, then we're working with them. We're regulated by the Public Service Commission. We're also regulated by Department of Environmental Protection. So on the customer service side, we're trying to make, we realize that affordability is an issue. And, we have plenty of customers who are in a fixed income situation. We try to be mindful of that. And, it's an open conversation, when they're, and obviously it follows the same typical regimen of, if somebody's reaching out about assistantship, generally, some kind of eligibility, some kind of justifying the need is involved in that conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. There's certain check boxes and I'm sure people, when they get to that level, generally aren't trying to take advantage of it, but there's probably a small percentage that are like, being a little sketchy, but that's good that y'all have protocols for that. You mentioned the Public Service Commission. So I know this applies for like power a lot, and people get up in arms when they hear rate increases. Let's talk about regulations with that and the EPA. Like, how do, what certain standards come to mind that you all have to abide by? And same for you, Veronica. I imagine, Brandon, when you're getting ready to, when you design a system, you got a list of approvals you got to go through before they even start digging ground. And but we'll start with Luke. So, what kind of regulations are there?
Yeah, on the wastewater side, the wastewater treatment side. So we're as far as the what we recycle and produce with the wastewater treatment, that's regulated through West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection, which US EPA they've handed that regulation to the state. And we are at the plant environment. We're doing constant testing of the water at various stages of treatment to make sure that we're hitting all of the numbers. We actually just this past year celebrated a year with no violations, no parameters outside of what we've been, what our permit has specified. So those are the numbers that it blows my mind how much work and how much math and science is happening we have a lab on site and a couple of personnel there to run our own numbers, and then we're also sending off samples constantly to hit those numbers, so that what goes into the stream, because we discharge into Piney Creek, and what is being discharged into the stream is clean water, and that's the bulk of our regulation. We also run our utility runs we have a stormwater utility as well, which is more the general, pollution prevention within an urbanized area.
Mhm.
And we have permit regulations there that are also through the department, the DEP. Then on what we call the collection side, just the pipes I mentioned about like spills, we have an obligation to investigate any kind of, any reported spill, discharge of sewer onto the ground, and to mitigate that. So we do that as part of the permit as well. And then Public Service Commission, we are that's more to do with the utility running as a provider to a customer. So how we're interacting with the customer, how we're, all of the budget things, and all of that is regulated through PSC.
Do you all request rate raises? Do you have to go through
do.
that process? Okay.
We do. Yeah. And that goes through, PSC is involved in that. The way we're set up as a board of the city, that goes through city council. And there are national standards basically on how, like, what is reasonable, rate increases. And it doesn't prescribe exactly what your rate needs to be, but it gives you a perspective on because we're not just out in the private market, with our rate competing against a neighboring rate. We have given service area. So we are the only option if you're in our service area we're the only option as a sewer provider.
There isn't someone who owns the board that's wanting a new yacht.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And I think a lot of confusion happens there because, like anything else, your overhead, as it increases, you have to have the revenue to account for it, to have incentives for folks to even work there, and you want to retain employees, and it's a whole thing. I think where the confusion comes in is where inflation doesn't typically keep up with wages, and then they get all upset and everyone blames you, but it's not. I mean, it's really it's like 100 issues. It's not just the one. All you all are doing is trying to maintain a sustainable operation.
Right.
Yeah, got it. And the permit, it sounds a lot like coal mining. So you have to clarify, I imagine you have a certain pH level that you got to maintain, and you got a certain X number, let's say gallons, that you're allowed to dump in Piney Creek. Is that how the permit works?
Pretty much.
So,
yeah.
So they give you like an X number of, whatever gallons per quarter or per year, or.
So there are a lot of those, and I'm not the expert on the numbers game,
Sure.
but a lot of those numbers are tied to a volume. And like we treat so many million gallons a day. And then with that, what those, it's pretty intricate. There's usually like a maximum level that you can't ever discharge, water that has, this level of, ammonia in it, or whatever the parameter is. But you also have like numbers that you have to hit across a week-long period or a 24-hour, that kind of. So that's why all of the sampling, all of the time, and we have parameters for the for metals, for copper, for ammonia, for bacteria, for
heroin.
All of the above. Yeah.
Okay.
They haven't put heroin into the permit,
Gotcha.
but it is that's a fun developing field, is tracking drug use through the sewer.
Oh, really?
Really? Yeah.
You can actually have issues at the plant when the police are doing drug bust searches, people flushing it.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
You can have upsets with plants because of that.
Wow. I was just joking. I didn't mean
no,
it.
no.
Yeah.
Wow.
And heroin is not one of the three Ps.
Okay, yeah. I mean, listen.
It doesn't mean.
And
This is why we got to potty train people. Don't flush your
Yeah,
drugs.
Right.
Yeah, don't flush your drugs. I'm not even going to say anything else. I was getting ready to make a joke, but that's not a good joke. But yeah, and that's nothing against West. Listen, heroin's everywhere, y'all. Get over it. I'm just kidding. So all right, that all makes sense. So Brandon, for you, what type of, like, you're in AutoCAD, you're making this huge dump station, and you're really hyped about it. Where do you send it when you get the plans? Like, I imagine you got to approve it with your supervisor, and then they got to send it off, or maybe you are the supervisor.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I'm actually a registered professional engineer, and to be able to submit these permits, you have to have that certification. And you have to go, it's a process. I'm not going to bore you with the process, but to be able to submit an application to construct one of these facilities, you have to be a professional engineer. It has to have my seal, my signature, date, all the above. But we actually use a design code called the Wastewater Treatment and Collection System Design Standards. There's one for water. There's one for operators. There's this whole host of design regulations, operation regulations, and there are criteria. There's design criteria. So I will actually go through my calculations abiding by such design criteria, and I will submit it to the West Virginia Bureau for Public Health. And that commissioner, if it's a water project, they'll handle it with them. But if it's a sewer project, they'll send it to the DEP, and they'll actually go through their engineers, their review process, their comment process, and we come to a solution, and then they approve the permit to construct these. Now we have to bid it and go through the construction process, but that's where I come in on that side.
Gotcha. How interesting. And then, you get it approved, you go out, pop the champagne. Woo! Let's go.
I wish.
Okay.
I wish. It's not that. You get an email. It's not that great.
Okay.
It's the one where you hover over congratulations in the email and the confetti
wish.
pops out.
I wish. You
Nice.
forward that one to the client and say, hey, we got one more permit of the numerous that we have to go to construction.
We'll send you some champagne, Brandon.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I hear from my first off, my wife Jenna is an amazing person. Works with some of y'all, but she really wanted to be a part of this conversation. So I'm trying to channel her. I'm sure it's not working. I'm sure she's like, you need to ask this.
Oh my.
But all of this is really intriguing, and you're explaining it in a way that I think people are going to pick it up and kind of have a little more empathy for the industry, because everyone's trying. No one wants to eat poop. Okay. So we're trying here. Veronica, what about you? I imagine DOT is involved with the portable sanitation. That would be probably the main difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. DOT's involved. OSHA to a degree. In West Virginia, if you're providing portable sanitation to mine sites, then you get the pleasure of dealing with MSHA as well. So being familiar with those regulations and standards is very important. But what's interesting about the portable sanitation industry in West Virginia, we're not the only state like this, but there's almost virtually no barriers to entry into this industry. And if you keep your clientele to pretty basic, small construction sites, public events, private events, that sort of thing, and you're not having to deal with OSHA or MSHA so much. I know I mentioned construction, but plenty of people decide to risk it. They decide to risk that OSHA may or may not inspect them. But there is no special licensure. There's no special certification. There's no requirement for professional development continuation. And it's actually something that works to the detriment of the industry, because any Joe Schmo can decide, this looks like a good business to get into. I think I'm going to open a porta potty company. And then they're coming and not understanding the best practices, maybe not reading the best standards. There's regulations, and then there's standards, and usually the standards are higher, and you should try to strive to provide the best. And so then you have portable restroom companies that are popping up here and there and offering completely unreasonably low rates to the public. And then for more established operators, they understand, because they're in it for the long haul. Wow. They understand the cost of maintaining your fleet, maintaining your portable units, paying your drivers well, getting them certified, all these things. And it's hard to compete when the public sees Joe Schmo charging $75 a pop, and you're at $150 over here, trying to explain the difference in the quality of service and the standard that the company holds themselves to. And we understand the safety regulations, and we're going to help educate you. And we're not trying to sell you more. We're trying to make sure that your tanks aren't overflowing with poop at the end of your event, that sort of thing.
Which happens.
Which happens. And, the operators, the company owners usually get the flack for that, when really, and it is our job as operators and as the association to educate the public so that they understand and know the right questions to ask. But it really happens when there is either the client purchasing the portable restrooms doesn't understand the need or the value of them, and so they want to get as few units as possible, cheapest units as possible. They want to have them serviced as little as possible, and then they bring in 100 or 1,000 or more people for an event, and then you have hopefully nothing so drastic as Woodstock, but you do have units that are overflowing and nasty. And then you have the people who don't respect the unit. We can only do so much if you're going to come in and pee on the walls.
Yeah, which people do.
Which they do.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, women are some of the worst offenders. There are portable toilet manufacturers. Oh my gosh, I love them to death for this. You can tell when women are becoming leaders in the industry and in manufacturing. There are some portable toilet units out there that now have squat handles on the door for the ladies.
Okay.
Use those squat handles. You'll see it on the door. It's not so you can open the door to get out. That's for you to have a point to help you squat if you don't want to sit on the seat.
Wow.
So you can aim a little better, and please don't pee on the floor.
Yeah, don't pee on the floor, ladies. Here's my process. So I'll go in, and this would depend. Like if I'm like 5 beers in, I'm gonna be like, "Let's sit down, boys. Let's risk it all." But I'll rip open the toilet paper. I'll make a little border on the outside. I'll get a double layer, but this is a lot of waste. And then I line it all around. So I'll do that, but I also do the duck walk technique, the squat handle. Highly recommend. To avoid all potential chaos. And should I use the hand sanitizer? Yes, no, maybe? Or
Please,
is it
God,
gonna...
yes, please.
Okay.
Please. And
got it. At the end, obviously, use the hand sanitizer. And this is a PSA. I think we need to talk about dumping products and what causes a lot of blowouts. So there's been certain products out there, name any of them. We'll just say hygiene products. I went and filmed this thing, and then I noticed there's these certain things laying all around from this blowout. Don't flush your stuff down the toilet. Put it in the trash. Correct? Okay.
We talked about tampons.
I didn't want to say it.
Yeah.
It's a safe space. We got
yeah.
just like we got to be cool talking about poop. We got to normalize this language.
I don't want it, but because guys are nasty, they're way nastier. Like, I'm like, ugh.
As a woman, I can tell you, we're pretty nasty.
Right. Well,
we just get prettied up before we go out and about.
I'm saying we do our own share of crap, but we'll dump. I imagine Zen pouches are a thing. Are we seeing a high rise on data influx on the pouch market, or is that not a thing? Okay, gotcha. Well, I guarantee 95% of the audience dips in. But anyway, all right. So that's some good talk. So what do we have to say? Let's kind of wind it up. I think we've gotten a lot of great information here. First off, that's terrifying that you tell me that I can go out and just start a portable sanitation company. Is this nationwide?
No, other states have different requirements. Not all. West Virginia is not in the minority. There are a lot of states that don't have a lot of certification requirements or licensure requirements, but several do.
We're wide open, son.
West Virginia is wide open, for better or worse. To everyone listening, if you are so hyped on poop after hearing this that you want to go start your own company, heck yeah, do it. And also immediately join your Portable Sanitation Association International, and we are here to help you kick butt at being in the business.
I mean, you have to do that. I mean, PSAI really is an amazing resource for you all to get into, because they literally lay everything out on how you do things proper and how you don't catch the funk. Because, you got people, I'm sure Honey Dippers is a great place, but that's marketing too. That's the other place that I know, Honey Dippers. I imagine someone's going out and they're pumping wide open and they're on their 7th year. They're complacent as crap. And then they just sit down and eat a bologna sandwich and notice there's a little extra something on the sandwich. We got to prevent that.
Yep.
I mean, it's so important not to eat that stuff.
Big advocate of PPE over here.
Yeah.
Love a good glove.
Oh, yeah. You got to have gloves, and you have different gloves for cleaning the toilet versus cleaning the hand station. You got 2 buckets. You got one bucket to have for the trash, and you got one bucket to have for the blue
Yeah.
and the water. Yeah.
You know more than you think, JD. You're ready to get into business.
Yeah, I'm ready. I just need, what's the overhead? Like, what's the startup capital?
Oh, you're going to be running on thin margins for a while.
Okay.
That's why these pop-ups come in. They don't price it right. And then, a year later, bye-bye.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I guess we can kind of wind it up here. Let's go to each person. Brandon, how hopeful are you for the future of West Virginia? Why should a company, disregard 10-pound trout and move here and know that there are still places you can go to have a fully functioning system that will last for decades to come with good maintenance? What would you say to those people?
Well, there's tons of wonderful people running these systems, water and sewer systems all throughout the state. And it ties back into our economy, our people. We have a growing, diverse economy with tourism and economic development. And we're looking for industries to come in, and this is the backbone for this. And you can be assured that the people who are operating these systems day in and day out are as highly educated with as many operator certifications as can be. And on the engineering side of things, we're doing everything we can to work with these utilities to make them as easy to install and operate as we can.
Heck yeah. What town in Logan?
Man.
Lord, yeah.
Go
Nice.
Willies.
Did you play Triadelphia any?
No.
Course. It was a 9-hole golf course they
Oh,
used to have. It shut down.
I went to grade school right by there.
Oh, nice. Okay. What year did you graduate? I'm about to age everybody.
05.
05?
Make me think a little bit.
I was 03, son.
Okay.
Yeah. We like the same bands. Limp Bizkit was still somewhat around.
Mhm.
All right,
Mhm.
Luke, let's talk about these utilities. Shout out to rural areas too. But what do you have to say about the future of infrastructure in West Virginia? What we got to take serious and your hopes?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big challenge, and I do think it's exciting, primarily because we see, I think historically in Appalachia and West Virginia, we see really amazing creativity come from really big challenges, and that's what this is a huge challenge to serve places that aren't being served, or to bolster the places that are struggling. We need creative solutions, and it's funny to see in the developing world. There are all kinds of governments and NGOs that are doing really creative things for sanitation, for clean water, providing clean water, and some of that creative stuff is, it shouldn't be off the table here. Even in our very established utility, we're having to get more creative every year with, just managing the demands of development, the demands of an aging system, the demands of more intense storms, all of the above. It's not business as usual. It's how do we maximize the revenue that we have from our ratepayers so that they get the best service for the rate that they're paying. And I think in a lot of these, I think the human capital that we have here and the creativity that is just built into the people that we have here. I mean, there's all kinds of industry opportunities for people to get into on the sanitation side, on the engineering side, the design, highlighting that and making students aware of that as they're coming into, it's traditionally, I think we've viewed our our career opportunities as fairly limited here. And I don't think that's the case. I think you can build an incredible career in or related to sanitation and have a great pride in that you're, part of this foundation of, the community to be able to provide and ensure that we're protecting the resources that we have, protecting the people that we have. So I think it's really exciting.
Heck yeah. I mean, it's at least one of the top 3 most important things I'd say out there to me. Bigger question. If people eat more fiber, does that help your life? Does it make it easier? What do you think? We get revenue and bill based on just water usage. So I don't know that now if that means they're going more often, then I guess that's more usage. I mean, if you're plugging up
fiber's good for us, right? So I mean, just
if you're plugging up a 4-inch line, you gotta fix it.
Gotta do something.
We'll put in 6. We'll put in 6 next time.
Yeah.
Your lateral will be a 6 after that.
That's our mindset. We're like, go bigger, boys. Like, I just need a bigger truck. That's That's great. All right, Veronica, what about you? Portable sanitation, regular Randy Roy out there, hammer down, drop a couple million on some trucks. Or I don't know, it wouldn't be that much, would it? $500,000, you could get
how big you're going.
Yeah.
Depends how big we're talking.
Yeah. What is the future? Especially, I just now thought of this. We just got a New River National Park designation, which means more butts on seats. Have you saw an effect from that already, or has that been a thing when it comes to increasing tourism?
It needs to be watched, and I hope that we continue to see an increase. There's a lot of the more permanent structures out there at your trailheads with holding tanks. But I think we'll see portable sanitation pop up more at some of those harder to reach places. I certainly hope so, because folks are going somewhere. When you gotta go, you're gonna go. So I hope that we see more of it out there. And as far as portable sanitation in general, there are so many innovations that are happening and making their way across the country and the globe already. Your regular portable toilet isn't just the one with an open drop tank in it anymore. We have flush units. We have portable restroom trailers where when you walk inside, you feel like you're in a luxury bathroom at a hotel. There are portable systems now that will hook up to public sewers. Now, these are for your big events, but they will hook up to public sewers and have that vacuum system that you like so much, JD. You feel like you're in the airplane. You walk into that and it looks like you're in a bank of porta potties. You hit that flush and you're afraid you're going to go down with it.
Heck yeah.
So the innovation is out there. And as far as hope for West Virginia, and I would say where there's need, there's opportunity. And the people that, you can see it just with Brandon, Luke, JD, just the people in this room.
I don't do anything.
Well,
Let me clarify that.
The people that work in this industry, though, are, as you can tell, super nerdy. But we're into the science, we're into the chemistry and the biology, we're into serving the public, we care about people, we're into logistics, we care about getting things from point A to point B in the most efficient way possible, we care about the environment, and we like problem solving. Some of the most creative, intelligent, cool people work under the radar every day. And so the public should know that some of the most awesome people you meet are behind the scenes working on this. So of course there's hope. And if you want to come here, there is opportunity to get nerdy with us.
Heck yeah. I have a theory. 10% of people are actually useful. Think about it. Anyone you work with, you have that one person that you go to of like, I'm going to go to so-and-so. And I ain't calling nobody out. But I'm just saying, I'm going to go to so-and-so because they get stuff done. But then that person gets so overloaded with tasks because everyone knows they get stuff done. But anyway,
there's an equation for that. I think I've seen it before. It's like the square root of the number of people in your organization do a certain percentage of the work.
Yep.
There's a number.
I love it. Shout out to the 90. Y'all are living life. Dream. Like, you're a lot less stressed.
Your secret.
Yeah. Oh, that's fabulous. So the industry, you see a lot of openings across the board, like.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So engineers, sanitary board has regular positions come open.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You hire like chemists, or like, what are you looking for?
We do. We've got we have over 40 employees, but we're not fully staffed right now to the need that we have. We have regular openings for operator. You can come in as an operator in training at the treatment plant, and then and work your way up. This is they're referring to it, I think, as the silver tsunami in the industry. We've got really qualified people who are right at the retirement point. And so all of that, not just that manpower and that, the knowledge of how to do stuff, but the industry knowledge and the background, all that's walking out the door in the next 5 to 10 years. And so, we're actively looking for people to come into the industry to learn while they can from these veteran operators. And then on our collection side, that's working in the field, operating equipment and digging old pipe out, putting new pipe in, coordinating with private development, doing that for they're often the first person on the scene to help a homeowner customer find out what the problem is on their property. We're we're maintaining and laying new, thousands of feet of pipe every year. And
Now he's bragging.
it's,
You have
it's a
to.
cool, like,
You have
it's a-
to.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Keep it going. Keep it
so
going.
I mean, that is like that is wide open. And yeah, we need people with the science. We need people with the science background. We need people with construction background. We need people who are sharing or want to share. I have gotten passionate about it as a result of being exposed to this. This was not on my radar when I was, graduating high school, graduating college. I'm very thankful, but it's something that at least across the industry, I think a lot of people talk about. We've kind of stumbled our way into this field because we didn't know it was there.
It's not advertised, published, or anything. No one thinks of it. It's out of sight, out of mind.
Yep.
Was you like, I really want to make like a skyscraper, and then you're like, I'll take this, dump station or whatever. How did you end up
I
there?
think my two favorite, I was structural engineering and water resources were my two favorites. And just jumping into it. And this is oddly enough, you go to college, you graduate with this degree. First week back on the job, I'm in my hometown in a water treatment plant. Like, it's full circle. And I'm literally helping my family members with projects from some of the clients that we serve. You can't get any more rewarding than that.
Yeah, you know what I love? All of y'all, we all come from communities where people from the outside look and say, oh, I know exactly what you are. You're X, Y, and Z. But you can never guess how many people that are like you all that get into certain industries that are very passionate and professional and smartest. Appalachians can compete with anyone. I don't care what anyone says out there. It's the same with this stuff.
Mhm.
So we're just working with what we got. And actually, arguably, it's a lot harder to do it here.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And somehow we're all still moving. So heck yeah. All right, y'all. Last tip for me, I guess, to wrap it up. My advice on potty training a boy, at least. I remember peeing on a big pile of Cheerios inside the toilet. It has gave me supreme aim, and I am very appreciative of that, especially in concert situations where I have to duck walk and do this whole thing. It's really helped me to narrow down how to hit that hole. So that's my suggestion. Check out the Beckley Sanitary board. If you need stuff in the area. E.L. Robinson, I see y'all's name on every construction project known to man in West Virginia.
We're around.
Yeah. So shout out PSAI. If you're wanting to start Scotty Potties Jr. out there, holler at Veronica, get signed up, know how to do stuff right. And before you leave this video, like this video, subscribe to Creepalachia on YouTube, leave a review on Apple and Spotify if you don't mind. It really helps the show be found. Check us out on Facebook and TikTok, and buy a shirt or hat or sticker at creepalachia.shop. We have it going now. And last but not least, everyone always remember, above all else, long live Appalachia.